The federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., was wrapped in a thick, tense silence as Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, entered through the grand wooden doors. In her grasp was the leash of Bruno, a German shepherd with a deep, jagged scar running along his left side. Every head in the room turned toward her as she made her way to the center, her steps both cautious and determined. Beside her, Bruno moved with a quiet alertness, ears perked, sensing the atmosphere. Karoline wasn't just another witness. She had a critical role in overseeing the high-stakes trial of Victor Grayson, a former Pentagon official accused of selling secrets to China. Her job? To ensure that no classified information was compromised. But beneath the surface, an unanswered question loomed. Was there something still hidden that she alone could uncover? Before diving deeper, let us know where you're watching from in the comments and subscribe so you never miss a gripping story. Seated on the judge's bench, Daniel Harper, a seasoned legal expert with streaks of silver in his hair, leaned in slightly, his piercing gaze fixed on Karoline. He understood the magnitude of this case. It wasn't just about one man, but a suspected conspiracy that threatened President Donald Trump's administration. Across the courtroom, Victor Grayson sat at the defendant's table, his face disturbingly calm, almost arrogant. At 50, he had once been an unremarkable military analyst, but now he stood accused of passing national security secrets to foreign operatives. His arrest had come after a tip-off about a secret meeting with Chinese contacts, but his defense team was aggressive. No solid evidence, no confession, and a strategy designed to tear down every accusation. Then, something unexpected happened. As Karoline settled into her seat, her sharp green eyes locked onto Grayson. Her fingers twitched slightly before forming a subtle movement, a silent signal, one that only those with advanced training would recognize. It was the cue she had prepared for Bruno, a dog trained under the Trump administration to detect surveillance devices and suspicious behavior. Only two people in the courtroom noticed it, Bruno and Judge Harper. Instantly, Bruno tensed. As Karoline tapped lightly on the table, the German shepherd's muscles coiled, his ears standing tall. A low, deep growl rumbled from his chest. Not just a warning, but something more primal, something instinctual. His golden brown eyes fixed on Grayson, unblinking, unwavering. A hush swept through the courtroom as murmurs spread among the onlookers. Judge Harper reacted swiftly, slamming his gavel down with a force that echoed through the chamber. "Court is recessed for 15 minutes, he announced, his voice unusually firm. Prosecutor Anna Reynolds shot him a questioning look, but Harper didn't reply. Instead, his eyes flickered toward Karoline, standing rigid beside Bruno though the dog was her only source of steadiness. Something had just shifted in the case, and Harper needed time to figure out exactly what it meant. As the courtroom emptied, Harper remained seated, deep in thought. In all his years on the bench, he had never seen a trained dog react with such precision. What had Bruno detected? And more importantly, what did it mean for the trial? Out in the hallway, Karoline knelt beside Bruno, her fingers gripping his fur tightly. Margaret Leavitt, her mother, crouched beside her, gently running a shaky hand through her daughter's hair. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" she whispered. Karoline didn't respond. She didn't have to. Her grip on Bruno tightened as she then leaned into him, as if drawing strength from his presence. A few steps away, FBI agent Ethan Brooks observed the moment. A veteran investigator with a sharp instinct for high-stakes cases, Brooks could sense the shift in the air. He stepped closer to Judge Harper, lowering his voice. "I'd bet my badge, Judge. Bruno just picked up something off about Grayson." He exhaled slowly, his deep blue eyes narrowing, their intensity cutting straight them through the deception. "Then we need to figure out exactly what that is," he said, his voice steady and unwavering. Inside the defendant's private chamber, Victor Grayson sat across from his lawyer, Thomas Reed. Now alone, the smug expression that had once dominated Grayson's face had faded, replaced by something far colder, calculating, ruthless. His fingers tapped rhythmically against the wooden table, his mind replaying every second of the courtroom exchange. Karoline hadn't spoken a word. But that damn dog had reacted. She knows something, Grayson murmured, almost to himself. Reed raised an eyebrow. What? Grayson forced a thin, unnatural smile. Nothing, he replied casually, though inside his thoughts were racing. He had planned for everything, but not for Bruno. If that dog became a problem, it could unravel everything. As the 15-minute recess drew to an end, Judge Harper adjusted his robe, inhaling deeply. He wasn't one to believe in coincidences, and his gut told him that whatever had just happened with Bruno wasn't random. It was a lead, a critical one. For the first time since the trial began, the tides seemed to be shifting. The courtroom hummed with tension as the attendees settled back into their places. At the defendant's table, Victor Grayson sat eerily still, yet a flicker of unease had finally betrayed him. Across the room, Prosecutor Anna Reynolds prepared to resume questioning, but all eyes had drifted elsewhere, toward Karoline Leavitt and the German shepherd at her side. Bruno wasn't just a dog. He was an asset. Specially trained under the Trump administration, he had been conditioned to detect hidden surveillance devices, explosives, and even minute shifts in human behavior. His presence in the courtroom wasn't for show. It was a classified security measure that Karoline had personally ensured. Anna Reynolds stepped forward, her voice crisp and unwavering. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Grayson maintained prolonged communication with Chinese operatives, transmitting classified Pentagon intelligence. She placed a stack of documents onto the table. Immediately, Thomas Reed was on his feet. Objection! Speculation, Your Honor, he countered smoothly. There are no recordings, no photographic proof, just witness testimony, which is highly unreliable. Seated near the prosecution table, Karoline silently observed Grayson. Something about his body language caught her attention, the way his fists clenched ever so slightly at the mention of recordings. She had seen that reaction before, in tense White House briefings. It was a telltale sign of distress. Without hesitation, she tapped her fingers lightly on the table. A subtle, deliberate motion. Bruno knew the cue instantly. The German shepherd's ears shot up, his body tensing. Then, like a coiled spring, he sprang to his feet, sniffing the air sharply before locking onto a single target. Grayson. With laser-like focus, Bruno moved, prowling toward the defendant's table, his nose working rapidly. Then he stopped. His chest rumbled with a deep, warning growl, his golden-brown eyes fixated beneath the table. A hush fell over the room, the murmurs spreading, like ripples in still water. Judge Harper struck his gavel hard against the bench. "Miss Leavitt, what's going on?" he demanded, his voice clipped and authoritative. Karoline rose from her seat, her voice sharp, yet controlled. "Your Honor, Bruno is trained to detect surveillance equipment. I believe there's something here that we haven't found yet." From his position near the door, FBI agent Ethan Brooks reacted instantly. Moving swiftly to Bruno's side, he crouched, following the dog's lead. Reaching under the defendant's table, his fingers brushed against something small, metallic. He pulled it out. A tiny black device, no bigger than a coin. A faint red light blinked on its surface. "A listening device," Brooks announced, his voice slicing through the stunned silence of the courtroom. Grayson's face lost its color, his hands visibly shaking. Judge Harper slammed his gavel again, his expression now ice-cold. "Court is adjourned," he declared. "I'm ordering a full security sweep of this entire courtroom." His gaze locked onto Grayson, hard and unyielding. At the prosecution's table, Anna Reynolds exchanged a glance with Karoline, one of both admiration and intrigue. Meanwhile, Thomas Reed leaned toward his client, whispering in frantic urgency. But Karoline remained still, her hand resting lightly atop Bruno's head. Her eyes burned with quiet confidence as Judge Harper's final gavel strike echoed through the chamber. And just like that, the courthouse security team sprang into action. Ethan Brooks, still gripping the tiny listening device recovered from under Victor Grayson's table, passed it to a nearby technician. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was firm. "We need this analyzed immediately. With streaks of grey in his hair and sharp brown eyes that had seen more betrayals than he could count, Brooks was a veteran in the FBI's counter-espionage unit. He had spent decades hunting ghosts in the world of international conspiracies. As he studied the device, his jaw tightened. "I've seen these before," he muttered. "Chinese tech, no doubt about it." Beside him, Olivia Bennett stepped forward. She was sharp, methodical, and just as relentless as Brooks. Her gaze flickered toward Karoline Leavitt, who stood steady next to Bruno, her fingers resting lightly on the German shepherd's head. "Miss Leavitt," Olivia's voice was soft but unwavering. "Did you notice anything before you signaled?" Karoline nodded slightly, her tone calm yet decisive. "I saw Grayson tense up when the prosecutor mentioned recordings. His reaction didn't match his earlier confidence." Olivia and Ethan exchanged a quick, knowing glance. "Body language," Olivia murmured. "He's hiding something." Across the room, Prosecutor Anna Reynolds approached, files clutched tightly in her hands. Determination burned in her eyes. If that device was active, it could have recorded everything in this room, including what Grayson didn't want us to hear. Ethan, however, exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. "It's not that simple. A listening device alone doesn't prove he's working with China, not unless it contains incriminating data." Anna turned to Karoline. "Are you certain Bruno reacted only to this device?" Karline's lips curled into a faint, knowing smile. "Bruno doesn't just alert to objects, he detects threats, devices, explosives, erratic behavior. If he's responding, there's more to this than just a bug." Meanwhile, outside the courtroom, an unexpected witness stepped forward. Helen Parker, a retired Pentagon employee who had once worked under Grayson, approached Ethan Brooks. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled slightly. "I heard about the dog," she said. "I have information." Brooks narrowed his eyes. "Go on!" Helen took a breath. "I saw Grayson meeting someone in the Pentagon parking lot a few weeks ago." He handed something over. "I don't know what, but I remember part of the car's license plate. It started with XJR. Ethan's eyes lit up. "That's a lead." He quickly jotted it down. Helen nodded. "I didn't speak up sooner because I was scared, but if he's really a spy, I can't stay silent anymore." Inside the courthouse, as the security team conducted a full sweep of the courtroom, Karoline stood alone in the hallway, her fingers running gently through Bruno's fur. The weight of the moment settled on her shoulders. This case wasn't just another legal battle. It was a fight to protect national security, a duty she had sworn to uphold. Bruno looked up at her, his golden brown eyes filled with unwavering loyalty. She leaned down, whispering softly, "We'll get to the truth, buddy." But deep down, she knew the listening device was only the beginning. Grayson wasn't working alone, and whoever else was involved had just been put on high alert. In a quiet corner of the courthouse, inside the FBI's temporary office, Ethan Brooks summoned the tech team to analyze the recovered device. The room smelled of sanitizer, the air humming with the faint whir of computers and clattering of keyboards. On the table, Bruno sat attentively, the scar on his left flank a silent testament to his past. Once, he had been one of the finest K-9s in national security, trained under a specialized program during the Trump administration. He had the rare ability to detect threats that even the most advanced human intelligence often missed. The scar on his body wasn't just a mark, it was proof of a mission completed. Bruno had once tackled a suicide bomber during a high-stakes raid, suffering severe injuries in the process. The damage nearly ended his career, and he had been slated for retirement until Karoline fought to keep him. Ethan glanced at Bruno, then at Karoline through the glass door. His voice was low but certain. "That dog isn't just a pet." He turned to Olivia. "He's our secret weapon." Olivia nodded, her gaze following Karoline. "And she knows exactly how to use him. If Victor Grayson truly was a traitor, Bruno would be the one to expose him." Convinced that his sharp intelligence and unwavering loyalty still held immense value, Karoline Leavitt had fought to keep Bruno by her side. And now, inside the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., she was about to see her faith rewarded. In the FBI's temporary office just off the courtroom, Karoline gripped Bruno's leash tightly. The German shepherd, his long scar along his left flank a silent testament to past battles, sat beside her, his golden-brown eyes scanning the room with unwavering vigilance. Rachel Morgan entered, kneeling to meet Bruno at eye level. Her voice was soft yet firm. "Hey, Bruno, you're a special one, aren't you? Trained to catch what humans miss." Bruno didn't move. He simply held her gaze, his presence steady, unthreatening, but undeniably alert. Rachel glanced at Karoline. "Want to test his skills?" Karoline's nod was sharp, precise. "I saw him react in the courtroom. If there's anything else off, Bruno will find it." Rachel gave a subtle command. "Search!" Bruno rose. Instantly, nose twitching as he sniffed the air, moving deliberately through the room. Karoline's heartbeat quickened as he neared a chair in the corner. He paused, nose hovering just above the floor. Rachel looked to Karoline. "If you're ready, give the signal." Karoline's fingers tapped lightly on the table, a secret cue, one she and Bruno had practiced countless times. Bruno reacted at once, lowering his head, stepping cautiously toward the chair. Then he stopped. A subtle shift. His ears flicked forward, his muscles tensed. A low, menacing growl rumbled from his throat. Ethan Brooks, standing nearby, rushed, over-crouching at Bruno's side. He reached beneath the chair's cushion and froze. Between his fingers, he pulled out a tiny object no larger than a coin. But it wasn't a listening device. It was a miniature signal transmitter. Ethan's eyes darkened with realization. This is encrypted tech. It could send data out without anyone ever knowing. Anna Reynolds, the prosecutor, entered just as the discovery was made. Her sharp eyes flickered with excitement as she took in the device. "This is it," she breathed, gripping the files in her hands. "If Grayson used this in the courtroom, every lie he told could have been sent straight to his accomplices." Ethan's expression remained cautious. "We need to analyze the data. If it ties back to China, he's got no way out." Karoline remained still, one hand resting on Bruno's head. Since taking him on as her companion, at the Trump administration's suggestion, she had known he wasn't just a dog. He was an indispensable asset in safeguarding national security. And he had just proven it again. Bruno looked up at her, as if fully aware of his role in all of this. In the days that followed, Karoline and Bruno became inseparable. Though she had no personal trauma to overcome, Bruno was her second set of eyes and ears, always alert to the dangers enemies tried to conceal. One afternoon, inside Rachel's office, Karoline watched as Bruno executed a search command. Then, something unexpected happened. "Good job." Her voice was so soft it was almost inaudible. Ethan, standing nearby, turned. He had rarely seen Karoline show emotion. But now, as she looked at Bruno, her eyes shimmered with something different. Trust. Rachel placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, whispering, "She trusts him, and sometimes trust is the first step to uncovering the truth." Back in the courtroom, tension thickened like an approaching storm. The gallery was packed. Journalists, government officials, legal experts, all waiting for the next twist in one of Washington, D.C.'s most high-profile cases. At the center of it all, Victor Grayson sat at the defendant's table. Gone was the smug confidence. In its place, an unsettling composure, cold, unreadable. His fingers tapped rhythmically on the polished wooden table, the only sign that something, deep beneath the surface, was beginning to crack. And as Karoline and Bruno stepped back into the room, she knew the fight wasn't over yet. The white House press secretary stood near the prosecution table, gripping Bruno's leash as if it were an inseparable part of her oversight role. The German shepherd sat alert beside her, ears erect, golden brown eyes locked onto Victor Grayson. Occasionally his nose twitched, as if catching a familiar scent in the air. "All rise!" the clerk's voice rang through the room. Judge Daniel Harper entered, his black robe fluttering slightly as he ascended to his seat. His sharp eyes swept across the courtroom, pausing briefly on Karoline and Bruno. He had ruled to allow Bruno's presence, a controversial but necessary decision, given the national security implications of the case. Harper settled in his chair, his voice deep and controlled. Before we begin opening statements, the court will hear arguments regarding the dog's presence in these proceedings. Thomas Reed, Grayson's defense attorney, stood, smoothing his tie with a practiced motion. His tone was polite, but firm. Your Honor, he began, while we acknowledge the prosecution's claim about the dog's supportive role, its presence is highly prejudicial. A large German shepherd in the courtroom could elicit an emotional response from the jury, unfairly disadvantaging my client. We request its removal during testimony. Anna Reynolds, the lead prosecutor, rose to counter. Your Honor, she said confidently, Bruno isn't a decoration. He's specially trained by the government to detect threats, listening devices, anomalies in behavior. His presence is essential to the integrity of this trial, especially in a case with such profound national security stakes. Judge Harper leaned back, his face unreadable. I've reviewed reports from the animal training expert and the National Security Unit. His voice was firm. The dog stays! A ripple of murmurs spread through the courtroom. Some nodded in approval, others muttered their discontent. Reed pursed his lips, clearly displeased, but unwilling to challenge the judge further. He sat down, casting a quick glance at Grayson, who remained unsettlingly stoic. Palpable tension filled the air as Anna Reynolds painted a chilling picture of Grayson's actions, a years-long espionage network, manipulating classified Pentagon data for China. The prosecution called its witnesses. Helen Parker, a former Pentagon employee, took the stand. Her voice wavered as she recounted the moment she saw Grayson exchanging documents with a stranger in the agency's parking lot. He was sneaky, like he knew he was being watched, she said, wringing her hands together. From her place near the prosecution table, Karoline listened intently. Occasionally, she tightened her grip on Bruno's leash, her eyes never leaving. Grayson. Whenever the air in the room grew stifling, she glanced down at Bruno, his steady presence grounding her in the storm of the trial. Then came the pivotal moment. The courtroom fell utterly silent. Karoline Leavitt was called to address Bruno's findings. She stepped forward, poised yet calm, Bruno at her side. Anna Reynolds approached, her voice gentle yet authoritative. Ms. Leavitt, we know you're not a direct witness, but you and Bruno's roles have been instrumental in this case. Can you explain what happened? Karoline didn't answer immediately. She didn't look at Anna. Her gaze stayed fixed on Grayson. Then, without a word, she tapped her fingers lightly against the stand. A familiar signal. Bruno reacted instantly. His nose twitched, his ears perked. Then, without hesitation, he bolted toward the defense table. A low guttural growl rumbled from his chest, deep, menacing. His golden brown eyes locked onto Victor Grayson, as if piercing through the man's carefully constructed facade. The courtroom froze. Judge Harper leaned forward. Order! His gaze was sharp, unwavering. Bruno pressed his body lightly against Karoline's leg, sensing the tension crackling in the air. Karoline bent down, gripping a fistful of his fur, grounding herself in the moment. Then slowly, she lifted her gaze to Anna Reynolds and gave the smallest of nods. Anna took a step closer. Her voice remained steady. Ms. Leavitt, what prompted you to signal Bruno? Karoline didn't lift her head immediately. Her eyes remained locked on Victor Grayson. The room seemed to hold its breath. Then, after a long moment, she raised her hand and pointed directly at the defendant. A flicker of tension crossed Grayson's eyes. His jaw tightened, an involuntary reaction. Thomas Reed, the defense attorney, sat frozen for half a second before quickly rising from his chair. Objection! But it was too late. The moment had already shifted, and everyone in that courtroom knew it. Objection! Thomas Reed was on, his feet instantly. Your Honor, this is baseless. Miss Leavitt isn't a direct witness, and pointing fingers like this, it's unreliable. Judge Daniel Harper raised a hand, his expression unreadable. Objection overruled. His voice was firm. The jury will assess the reliability of this information themselves. Reed sat back down, jaw clenched. Anna Reynolds pressed forward, voice calm yet precise. Miss Leavitt, did Mr. Grayson do anything to raise your suspicion? Karoline didn't answer. Instead, she made a small, deliberate hand gesture, a familiar signal Bruno knew. Instantly, the German shepherd went rigid, ears snapping up, muscles taut. A low growl rumbled from his chest, not aggressive, but a warning. A recognition. The sound sent a jolt through the courtroom. Judge Harper leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Bruno wasn't reacting to a vague suspicion. He recognized something. Someone. Reed shot up again, voice sharp. Your Honor, I object! This is... Sit down, Counselor. Harper cut him off, gaze locked onto the dog. Bruno stood frozen, golden brown eyes locked onto Victor Grayson. Then Harper spoke, slow and deliberate. Miss Reynolds, has this dog ever encountered the defendant before? Anna hesitated. Not to my knowledge, Your Honor. A shift rippled through the room. Harper turned, his stare drilling into the defendant's table. Mr. Grayson! His voice was quiet, dangerous. Have you ever had contact with this dog? For the first time since the trial began, Grayson flinched. The man who had remained an unshakable wall of composure now clenched. His fists. He didn't answer. A muscle in his jaw twitched. Anna's eyes widened. She turned, whispering something urgent to Ethan Brooks. He bolted from the courtroom. Reed's patience snapped. What's going on? Anna straightened, her face unreadable. Your Honor, I request a brief recess. We may have just uncovered new evidence tied to this case. Harper studied her, then gave a single nod. 15-minute recess. As the gavel struck, murmurs erupted like wildfire. What had Bruno recognized in Victor Grayson? And if he did, recognize him. Where had they crossed paths before? The next morning, Washington, D.C. was crisp with tension. Anna Reynolds stood before Judge Harper, her voice steady. Your Honor, we've analyzed the signal transmitter Bruno discovered. Its data points to a specific location, an abandoned warehouse in rural Virginia. We request a 24-hour recess to investigate. We believe this is the final piece to close this case. Thomas Reed shot up, his tone sharp. Your Honor, this is just a delay tactic. My client has been thoroughly questioned, and there's no evidence linking him to... Ethan Brooks leaned in toward Anna, whispering fast. I've seen this pattern before. If Grayson has a hidden base, everything he's concealed will be there. Judge Harper's gaze hardened. Motion granted. Court. Recesses for 24 hours. Reed exhaled sharply. Soil samples are circumstantial evidence at best. Enough. Harper's voice was resolute. The prosecution has 24 hours. The gavel struck. The team was already in motion. By early afternoon they arrived. The warehouse stood silent, swallowed, by overgrown grass and skeletal trees. The air was thick, heavy with something unspoken. The first sound was the wind, a slow, mournful whisper through rusted metal. The second sound was the click of Bruno's nails on the porch. Then Bruno stopped. His ears snapped forward. His body went rigid. A deep growl rumbled from his chest. He knew this place, and whatever was inside, it wasn't empty. Karoline Leavitt's secret signal to her dog, Judge Harper's courtroom ruling, and the stunned silence all reflect real issues in today's American society, particularly concerns about national security, trust, and technology. This story highlights the importance of collaboration in tackling hidden threats. As White House Press Secretary, Karoline Leavitt, alongside her highly trained German shepherd Bruno, helped expose Victor Grayson's espionage plot at the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. The discovery of a listening device and classified documents in a Virginia warehouse weren't just dramatic twists. They echo real-life espionage scandals, from Edward Snowden's leaks to foreign election interference. Today, the U.S. faces similar challenges: data breaches, cyber threats, and national security risks. But the lesson here isn't just about vigilance against enemies. It's about recognizing and trusting unexpected allies. Bruno wasn't just a dog. He was an invaluable asset, proving that human intelligence paired with an animal's instincts can uncover what others miss. Karoline's simple but powerful secret signal to Bruno changed everything. It showed how small actions, backed by sharp observation, can shift the course of an entire investigation. The teamwork between Ethan Brooks, Anna Reynolds, and Karoline also mirrors a core American value: unity. Working together led to the downfall of Grayson's espionage network, reinforcing that strength isn't just about individual intelligence, but about trusting the right people, or even the right animals. The takeaway? Be observant like Karoline, always. Ready to act when something feels off. Build and trust your team, whether it's colleagues, family, or even a loyal companion like Bruno. In an era of misinformation and hidden dangers, combining sharp instincts with strong alliances will help you not just survive, but prevail. Just like Karoline and Bruno did in bringing down Grayson's espionage ring. Remember, even in the most high-stakes situations, a single decision, like Karoline's signal to Bruno, can change everything. Thanks for following this thrilling journey of uncovering an espionage plot. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more gripping stories. See you in the next video, where we'll continue exploring mysteries and lessons from modern America.